right? Because we're Oakland Rising, and we are about building the political power of those in the flatlands of Oakland, right? And I heard a lot of people trying to say, like, why Oakland? Why does Oakland need to pass a ceasefire resolution? What's the point? You know, we can't actually make any impact. And I think that there was a lot of organizing that went on behind the scenes, work that happened with, you know, a few weeks back where Nikki Fortunato Bass, the council president and council member from District 2 in Oakland, came out with a really strong statement against the siege on Gaza and really calling on President Biden for a ceasefire. And then Carol Fife working with different folks in the community, both Jewish and Palestinian, to really come up with a resolution, I think, that was really, really watered down. And there was a lot of support. And then there was also a lot of opposition that was sort of calling for, you know, all kinds of BS. But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, Lara, like why Oakland? Why is it important for Oakland to pass that resolution?
I'm going to leave before you start. Bye, Laura.
Bye. Bye, Pukalia. Thank you.
Why Oakland is because this isn't an issue that impacts people far away. This is an issue that impacts everybody, which is why you're seeing 1 million people march in London, why you're seeing hundreds of thousands march across the United States and millions across the world. Not only does the United States and Oakland send taxpayer dollars to fund this war on Gaza, not only does it continue to fund it more than any other country in the entire world, but also our family members, our community are losing people every single day to this genocide, every single day. So we know people in Oakland who have lost dozens of family members in the last month in Gaza. And that the ripple effect of the war and the hate mongering and the dehumanization of Palestinians is also finding itself here in Oakland too, where our students are too scared to go to school, where they're being bullied by other kids. Kids are getting beat up over these issues. Women are getting their hijab pulled off of their heads. We're seeing racist trolling and doxing of our students for simply walking out in support of ceasefire. So this isn't just a faraway issue. This is an Oakland issue. This is a Bay Area issue. This is a United States issue. And it's our responsibility to speak out in support of our students. It's our responsibility to speak out in support of our families and community members, but also as taxpayers, it's our responsibility to hold our government accountable for where our money goes and how it's being used to massacre and slaughter an entire people. So that is why we were able to pass the resolution unanimously. I would say it wasn't really watered down. It was just really simple. The resolution called for a ceasefire. There's so much more we should be calling for. We should be calling for an end to U.S. aid to Israel. We should be calling for an end to apartheid and settler colonialism. There's the end to the siege, the right of return of myself and my family and all Palestinians to return to our homeland. These are things that are necessary and critical, but in the moment, as the bombs are dropping on Gaza and people are not able to live, we are demanding an end to this war. Once we get this ceasefire, and we will, I mean, the history shows us, we will. Once we get this ceasefire, we're going to call on our allies, we're going to call on our electeds, we're going to call on people across the world to support us and join us in calling out Israeli genocide, but also Israeli apartheid, and not allowing U.S. money to go to Israel. That is a demand, and that is important. But the resolution was a simple resolution calling for ceasefire, and it passed unanimously, and that was beautiful. And that shows that Oakland stands with the people of Gaza. Oakland stands for human rights. Oakland stands against genocide. But that created fear in our opposition, who can only mobilize in a handful of people. They had, 12 people when we had hundreds and hundreds of people in overflow rooms that day at Oakland City Council supporting this resolution. They're a minority. Their voices are marginal. Their voices are unpopular. Their voices and positions are extreme. They're right-wing and they're racist. And that's why they weren't able to sway any city council member to vote against this resolution. And that's why they went on the offensive to attack AROC as soon as that resolution was passed, to then deem us and dehumanize us as terrorists. Because once you're a terrorist, once you're deemed unhuman and unworthy of living, then you're
right.
basically inciting people to actually cause harm and violence against AROC, against our base, against our community, against our staff, against our leaders. And you're delegitimizing all the amazing work AROC and our partner organizations and coalitions have done in the last 2 months. That's their attempt, and we're not going to let them do that. But we are calling on people to show up and support, because this is a strategy of the opposition and the right, is to completely target us in public, use their behind the scenes lobbying to try to minimize our impact, because we have the people power and we have the numbers.
Whew. For real, for real. And I just want to like recount though, at the city council that council member Dan Kalb from District 1 actually proposed amendments to the ceasefire resolution to ask to add condemning Hamas, and it was seconded by council member Treva Reed, and it was voted down. It was denied its amendments. Even a small amendment to small wording around that Dan Kalb tried to also push through didn't happen, and then unanimously everybody voted in alignment with this. And I think that there's some political moves that had to happen on his part, and because he is running for assembly seat or Senate seat in the California Senate, and so I think like these are important things for us to remember, because oftentimes there's a lot of theater that happens in political spaces and in city council meetings, or even at the Board of Supervisors. And so I really appreciate you bringing it back to like both one on like a human level, right? Like that we have community members here who are losing family members at this very moment and have already lost many, many. And that it is directly impacting us individually, because us as taxpayers give $3.8 billion, y'all, $3.8 billion to Israel every year. And Joe Biden wants to give an additional funding to Israel and to Ukraine to fight wars. And so I think this is really important for us, because as Oakland, we're faced with $365 million deficit with our city budget. And we're constantly told every day, no, we will not give you more housing. We don't have money for healthcare. We don't have money for better education. We don't have money for these things. But we do have billions of dollars that is ready and willing to go to Israel at this moment. And it's like beyond, if that doesn't get you beyond your heart, right? Beyond like connecting with somebody on a human level, like I hope it connects with your tax dollars.
And I mean, Oakland alone sends $6 million to Israel, right? So if you want to break that down and where that money could be used for Oakland families, for Oakland working class people of color, that's 727 households that could have public housing. That's 2,129 children receiving free or low cost child health care. That's 66 elementary school teachers. That's 17,000 households with solar power and electricity. I mean, there is so much more we could be doing with the millions of dollars, but it's not just a question of we don't want our money going there. It's also a moral imperative that we take action today and support the people of Gaza, right? So yes, our tax dollars are making possible. It's not just that they happen to also be supporting Israel. US tax dollars make possible the genocide in Gaza. We know that in the port of Oakland, we were there, we showed up within hours when we were notified that a military vessel was on its way to arm Israel and in this genocide, and we showed up and we protested and demonstrated and occupied that vessel. So we know Oakland is complicit on many levels, right? Militarily, economically, and politically. And so when you have elected officials, representatives, people in power, like the school district today, creating a chilling effect saying that you can't talk about Palestine. You can't equip students with the necessary skills to be able to unpack this issue, make sense of their realities, make sense of what's happening in the world. You're only harming more people and enabling more violence to ensue right here in our own backyard. And that's our concern today, and will continue to be our concern. But we totally want to just give props and appreciate the city council members, because they did stand on the right history that night. They took a bold stance, and they're facing attacks for that too. So we've been really encouraging everybody, if you haven't already, to send a thank you email to each of those city council members to let them know we got their back, and that once they come for them, we're going to show up, we're going to door knock, we're going to support them in their reelection. Because when you take action on the right side of history, you listen to your constituents. We want them to know we hear that, we see that, and we're going to support you. And when you don't take action, we also hear that and see that. And there will be a reckoning with all our electeds who are silent in this moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, so reach out to all of them. You can go to the Oakland City Council page to get all of their emails there. But give a really big shout out to, Nikki Fortunato Bass for really stepping out early, and to Carol Fife for really coming together and authoring this resolution to move it forward. And my understanding, like, once this happens, right, now the city, the mayor and the administration have to figure out ways of implementing this resolution into the administration. And like, how do we as a city, what do we do with that at the end of the day? So resolutions, I think a lot of people just think, oh, this got passed, and what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? It just means we just said ceasefire, or no to this genocide. But it really actually translates so that you know, if you don't know, the city council creates the policies, and then the mayor and the administration that our current mayor runs, right? She runs it, Mayor Tao, then has to figure out ways to implement that. So that goes from our city administrator, from the city attorney, to all of the different functions that the city has to now figure out. How do we implement this resolution, I think is an important one for folks to understand. And so maybe someone had put in the chat earlier, there's just a lot of love. I don't know if you're seeing it, Lara, but there was somebody earlier in the chat was like, what do we need to do to stop that 6 million from Oakland going to Israel? And I think, like, folks should also know that, our police department is directly linked to Israel in the ways that they have received training and have gone to Israel with the Israeli Defense Forces to get training. So all the ways that when we're protesting and they come out against folks, when we're out in the streets voicing the people power and movement towards liberation on all fronts, right? We saw that a few years ago in the streets when they were throwing tear canisters at young people that came out during the BLM uprisings, right? That they called a curfew and those kinds of things. Those were all trained by the IDF. The OPD was trained by them, as well as the Alameda County Sheriffs, as well as CHP, as well as almost every single police force within our jurisdiction has received training from the IDF.
And that's why we stopped Urban Shield in the Bay Area. So there was the largest militarization SWAT training that happened here in the Bay each year for many years on the weekend of 9/11. And it was years of organizing through the Stop Urban Shield Coalition that I'm assuming many of the folks listening were a part of, and a lot of Oakland Rising orgs were a part of, that we ended that training and program altogether. And Israel did train cops in that program. And that wasn't the only reason we ended it. We also ended it because we're against the expansion of policing and militarization. And so the Bay Area has a long history of making these connections and saying that we stand against this type of violence on our communities, war on our communities. And today what we're witnessing is this war is happening at home against attacks against Arabs, Palestinians, and Muslims right here in the Bay and across the United States. But it's also happening with our tax dollars in Gaza and in Palestine. And it's really important that we see this as the issue of our day today. And I think we are seeing that across the world, which is why millions are marching every single day. It's clear that where you stand on this question of Palestine today, you will look back at on this time in history one day and they will say, oh, it was that complicated issue, but now we celebrate it. And it's a clear thing, free Palestine. That should be it. That's a nonsense, that's a no brainer, right?
Right.
But today it's complicated, like every other issue is so-called complicated in the height of the struggle. And so what we're hoping is that we don't wait till it's too long, as Israel's literally using genocidal language, genocidal policies, genocidal military expansion and attacks and assaults on people in Gaza. We're hoping we could put a stop to this. And we believe we can with the people power we have. These resolutions are small steps in that, but they allow our community to feel safe and heard by our representatives. They also put pressure on the Biden administration that continues to be against ceasefire. So we're seeing a shift, and we're hoping that this shift will actually have a ripple effect and make longstanding changes in the region.
Yeah, and so you all, the big dollars, though, right? The big support is really happening at the federal level. There is also millions of dollars coming from the state of California. So call Governor Newsom's office. He went to Israel immediately after, at the beginning of the genocide when it started in October. And keep calling, because it's making a difference. It's making a change. And I think that is at some level bare minimum, y'all, like showing up and calling your representative to tell them how you would want this ceasefire to happen and happen immediately. And knowing that the US has that type of power, where would Israel be without the US? And we're starting to see governments around the world. I saw yesterday, I think South Africa just pulled and sent the Israeli ambassador home and cut off relations. And several Latin American countries, South American countries already began doing that early in October quickly. And I think there is large movement, not just people power, but on every level. We're seeing it across the world. Because I think there's the part around the humanity piece, and then there's just like the way in which we know that the liberation of Palestine also means our liberation as well, right? And I think that connection for folks is really deeply felt. And it's not just like, oh, I'm sympathizing or empathizing with the loss of loved ones, but really that in this moment, there are more and more people learning and knowing about Palestine, right? I've been wearing I was gifted a keffiyeh when I was in college. And whenever I'm out in the street and I have, Palestinian folks would see me with it and be like, oh my God, and the connection you immediately have around what that liberation means. And when you connect with people and talk about how my liberation is really connected to the liberation of Palestine, I truly believe that, because I believe that once we can free Palestine, we can free Korea, we can free all the ways that imperialism has really impacted our communities.
And what does it say about us today if we allow this genocide to unfold before our eyes?
Right.
What does it say about any social justice movement, organization?
Right.
What does it say about anybody who believes that they have a moral compass? If you allow this genocide to continue in Gaza, if you allow Palestinians across Palestine, from the West Bank and 48 and Gaza, to be murdered and massacred with US tax dollars, what does it say about the future of humanity if we allow this to happen without mass opposition and resistance? And that's why I'm hopeful that the mass opposition we are witnessing today is historic and setting the tone for what's to come. That there is no longer going to be business as usual with the state of Israel. It's not going to be acceptable for people to just allow unconditional support to the state of Israel. And we will reject collectively the notion that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, and our Jewish allies are leading the front on that, making it clear Even though Congress passed a resolution the other day equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, we know that that is offensive, that is racist, that in of itself is anti-Semitic. And we know we have the support of the masses in challenging these attempts to criminalize solidarity, to criminalize social justice activity. You know, we say this often, the people we celebrate today were considered terrorists yesterday, right?
That's right.
We need to remember that this issue of Palestine today is going to set the tone for what's to come for all other movements, and it is currently doing that. You can't say you stand for racial justice and allow the settler colonial violence to continue as it is against an indigenous population of Palestine. You can't say you're for racial justice and allow a genocide killing thousands of children every single day to unfold before our eyes. You can't say you're for social justice and racial justice and for education and equity when our kids are being bullied and treated poorly and teachers are ill-equipped to talk about the issue and are not allowed to even utter the words free Palestine or stop genocide. This is really a simple question of, are we for genocide or are we against genocide? Anyone trying to make it more complicated is racist. And that's really what it comes down to.
Drop that mic right there. I mean, I want to know, a lot of people, there's been a lot of questions in the chat, like what are ways that people can get involved in very specific ways, but like, are there things that are coming up in the next couple of weeks where people can tap in? And, you know, there was so much going on in the very beginning in October. Didn't want to like tap you in at that moment because we just knew that you all it was going to be wild and crazy for you all. And so, and just wanted to get out in the street with you all and like get to the port or get to wherever we needed to be to stand side by side with you all. But we're at a place, I think, where people's apathy can set in, like, you know, in the ways that like people start to take care of themselves or, you know, try to disconnect because it's too painful or they have to, or they think they have to shut it off. And this is actually a moment where we're needing people to create more and to join the tsunami, right? To join this wave of people who are really joining this movement, who've never, ever been activated before. Last weekend, Bay Resistance, AROC, Center for Political Education, Anti-Police Terror Project, held a mass convening, and we had over 1,000 people there really activated, and not just your everyday working in organizations, organizers, but everyday people who are like, how do I plug in? What do I need to do? What's the education I need to learn? And it was beautiful to see that. And so what are the ways that people can plug in, how they can support you, how they can support AROC in this moment while you're being attacked against the by the JCRC? Like, what are the ways that people can get activated? Because I know that a lot of people have joined us here and who are going to watch this video afterwards are going to want to know that.
Well, you can echo the calls from our Jewish allies that JCRC doesn't speak for me. They have a timeline of the different racist attacks JCRC has led, attacking not only Palestinian, but other Black and Brown organizations across the Bay Area. So go to JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace Bay Area's socials and follow, repost, reshare the information they're putting out there to create an alternative narrative about what these pro-genocide, pro-apartheid forces are really about. And support and defend AROC by sending letters to your representatives calling on them to condemn these racist attacks against not only AROC, but the broader movement for social justice. I'd also say we need to be prepared to defend.
Oh, your sound went out. Oh, there you go.
We should be prepared to defend OEA and all the teachers of Oakland against the backlash they're facing and continuing to face for simply wanting to teach the children about what's happening in the world, to build compassion and empathy and solidarity in the classroom. That is the mandate of teachers. And they are trying to create a chilling effect and bully them and threaten them and criminalize them for doing their jobs. So we need to be prepared to support OEA, to support the teachers union. And lastly, I would say there's a lot of activity still happening. There's a lot of momentum to build, to call for this immediate ceasefire, for an enduring ceasefire to stop this war. You can go to AROCorganizing.org. We have a calendar of events. You can input your own events if they're not there. There's so many people from different sectors taking action right now and organizing and building space. And we want to make sure that people know where to go and what to do if you want to take action. In addition to showing up and putting pressure on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors tomorrow. So there is a resolution tomorrow being introduced calling for a ceasefire. Our opposition, the Zionists and the pro-Israel, pro-genocide forces are simply saying no resolution. It's too divisive. And they're saying that, and they're calling on supervisors to not support a resolution calling for a ceasefire because their opinion is so unpopular, so extreme, so right-wing. They have nothing to actually offer. So encouraging folks to support the Board of Supervisors, call on them, call on your electeds wherever you may be to speak out, support, and demand Congress do more. And let's not forget about Pelosi. Let's not forget about the other elected officials who also need to be targeted right now, who actually have the power to make some difference in this moment. And we want to also hold them accountable.
That's right. Appreciate all of that. And go out, support the city council members that did vote for the Oakland ceasefire resolution. Support those OEA teachers, OEA as a union in and of itself. Support the families. Find a place to plug in, y'all. There are so many things that are happening in this moment. We look forward to all the ways that we can meet you in the streets activated. At that mass convening, I was in the family breakout room, and they combined the youth breakout room with the families because it was a huge turnout of youth. There was at least 20 or so folks from like high school to college age that was in the space. And I ended up having to scribe for them. And it was just inspiring to hear such young people, really, the youth really talking about the ways in which they were themselves, feeling isolated at their schools and still, there was some youth from San Carlos. They said they were, when they did the walkout, they joined the youth walkout. There was like 6 of them, but they still walked out knowing that they were going to be attacked and be bullied or ostracized by other students. And so that's the kind of this is the moment, y'all. This is not the moment for you to sit back. It's the moment to join a larger movement of people so that those 6 students or the city council members or the staff at AROC and all of the communities members that they represent and organize with, that they are not alone, that we all can really work together to move that. And I'd love to invite all of the AROC staff to join Oakland Rising's 15-year anniversary party this Friday. All of your staff are welcome to join us with no charge, ticket, drinks, food, all for you all. Want to join you on the dance floor just to move our bodies and in some joyful way, at least together, if you all are open to it. We'd love for you to be there and for you all to also come out and show your support and all the ways that we all are also continuing to put pressure on the city for racial justice, for economic justice, for environmental justice, that we're seeing that justice really play out in our city and at Alameda County. So go to Oakland Rising, follow us, follow AROC, and all the ways that Lara just shared with us. And thank you so much for joining. I know you have something to say.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the folks in Berkeley who are also holding the mayor accountable, who are trying to push for a resolution in the city of Berkeley. Just if you're in Berkeley, also continue to support those efforts. Everybody and everywhere, every place needs support to be able to demand more of our representatives and to support the families impacted. So shout out to all the folks throwing it on the ground. And thank you to Oakland Rising for your ongoing support, for making sure we have progressives in office that could actually represent our voices and defending them as we move forward. And I'll definitely relay that message to AROC members and staff to show up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So plug in, go to AROC, at their website to look at their calendar. Plug in by following them on social media. Follow Palestinian Youth Movement. Follow Critical Resistance. Follow Jewish Voices for Peace. Follow Anti-Police Terror Project. All these folks are constantly doing the work that this moment is calling for, but for every day, all the organizing that continually happens on the behalf of our community. So thank you, Lara. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.